Protests erupting across Russia after Putin's partial mobilization announcement. For those of you who don't know, I know that Vladimir Putin, that there wasn't a war happening in Ukraine, but it kind of seems like there is, don't you think? 300,000 conscriptions have been announced. People are protesting it and also getting arrested and immediately being forced to serve. Not a war, by the way, of course. Let's talk about that. Let's take a look.
Under pressure as protests break out across Russia. More than 1,000 arrested after Putin's order to call up more troops. Our
Thank you, Spider from Mars.
Correspondent Martha Raditz has more for us this morning. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Michael. This morning, President Putin making clear he will not back down in Ukraine despite significant setbacks, not only reminding the world that Russia has nuclear weapons, but calling up hundreds of thousands of men to join the war effort, a move that prompted...
I made jokes about this yesterday or 2 days ago when it first came out, and I was like, hey, special operation, but also these guys are, 300,000 guys to do victory laps. That's what it is, totally. Everything is totally fine. It's not a war, totally not a war. But also, maybe it is a war. I don't know. It seems like sure seems like a war is happening.
Widespread protests. This morning, more than 1,000 Russian protesters detained by Russian police after taking to the streets. Young men chanting, "I don't want to die for Putin." Mothers screaming, "Send Putin to the trenches. Let our children live." This after President Putin suddenly announcing he would call up
I want to know what the MAGA communists that are like super pro-Putin, who say I'm a fake leftist, have at this very moment about this war that's going on. I always think about those guys, like all 8 of them.
300,000 men for military service after his massive losses in Ukraine.
That's a thing. Not only is that a thing, but that's a thing that people think I am, regardless of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that this community has raised with me donation matching as well for Ukrainian victims. But, that's unimportant to this matter.
Putin called the move necessary and urgent, causing not only protests, but panic. Within hours of the speech, citizens flooding the airports, with nearly all international flights out of Russia sold out. President Biden at the UN launching a blistering condemnation of Putin.
President Putin has made overt nuclear threats against Europe. Now, Russia's calling up more soldiers to join the fight. And the Kremlin is organizing a sham referenda to try to annex parts of Ukraine. This world should see these outrageous acts for what they are.
Biden saying the world's blood should run cold over the invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in a pre-recorded speech to the UN calling for more military and humanitarian aid.
A crime has been committed against Ukraine, and we demand just punishment. The crime was committed against the values that make you and me a community of the United Nations. And Ukraine demands punishment for trying to steal our territory.
This comes as the battle on the ground continues to rage, with Russia vowing it will regain lost territory. ABC's Tom Sufi-Burridge is in Kharkiv in Ukraine's northeast.
We heard loud explosions here in central Kharkiv overnight, not far from here. As you can see, Russia is wrecking this city. But we're also hearing a lot of outgoing fire from the Ukrainians. Ukraine now trying to push east into the Donbass. Ukrainian forces trying to capitalize on their momentum before the weather turns, the ground softens, and any offensive becomes much harder.
But amidst the carnage and Putin's alarming escalation, some good news. 2 Americans, Andy Huyn and Alex Drueke, have been freed. The 2 men who joined the fight in Ukraine had been held as...
Bro, what the homie doing? I mean, this guy makes sense, right? Like, that looks like a classic hoorah guy. What's this homie doing, bro? You got a walking stick. What are you doing in Ukraine, brother? Yo, people are crazy. He's an ex-HasanAbi head? Wait, really? No shot, dude. You just made that up. I would love to hear his perspective.
Prisoners of war by the Russians for more than 3 months, along with 8 other foreign prisoners. They were part of a prisoner exchange mediated by the Saudi crown prince. Druke's mother already in touch with her son.
Alex and that he was in good spirits. He sounded good and strong, and it was just wonderful.
Both Americans are expected to be home soon, but Ukraine's war with Russia is far from over. Michael?
And without a doubt, Martha, thank you. And for more, let's bring in our contributor, former Defense and State Department official Steve Gagne. Steve, thank you for joining us this morning. And what do you make of these protests across Russia? What do they tell you about Putin's move to mobilize more troops?
I mean, what do you think, man? It's like, kind of seems like it's unfavorable. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say people don't like it, I think. Very similar, not dissimilar to Vietnam.
Yeah, Michael, up until now, the war in Ukraine has not affected the individual Russian citizen. It's been the Russian military goes to war and the Russian citizen goes to the mall. But this changes everything. Putin is asking a lot of the individual Russian person. Think about what the Vietnam War did to the social fabric in the U.S. when young men were asked to go fight for a war that they didn't believe in. That may be what we're seeing here in Russia. We'll need to watch it in the days and weeks to come to see how it affects not
The Russian protests were small in comparison, though. Bro, look at what they're doing. If they catch you protesting in your military age, I heard that they literally force you to the front lines immediately. Okay, you can't say pre-watch to that. It's the most obvious take that, like, young men don't want to die in battle because some dickhead decided to do the most unimaginably insane thing, which is invade Ukraine. Like, straight up. Absolutely psychotic. Ukraine literally made all the men join the military? Yeah, because they were being invaded. Yeah, dude, there's a bit of a... First of all, I don't even know if that's still the case. But, like, yeah, there's a difference between the country being invaded and the country doing the invasion. The thing I've seen is that he was calling upon 300K from the reserves. Might be wrong. Please, not a Russian bot. Donbass wants independence. How are they any different than Palestine? I don't think that, especially the Donbass region now, maybe is not the Palestine reference that you think it is. There were arguments that you could have made, but, you know, at this stage, it's not. First of all, they've been shelling. It's over. Like, the people that are there that were Ukrainian are gone. There was shelling that was ongoing leading up to the invasion that led to 14,000 people dying. There were so many diplomatic avenues. And also, as I have said time and time again, many missed opportunities on either side, regardless of who the aggressor was. Okay? And the aggressor was Russia, obviously. And what I'm referencing, of course, is the Minsk agreements. That would have been a far more favorable circumstance. A far more favorable circumstance for everyone involved and all the lives that were lost. However, at this stage, Ukraine has taken back territory that Russia took that moved even beyond the original LPR, DPR territory that they were slated to annex. Not only that, but at the time, as I said, they literally destroyed like complete diplomatic opportunities or even like any sort of serious election, like a real election that could have taken place when they took over areas where there were more favorable opinions to Russia. Because as we've talked about before, there are many studies that have been conducted. The further east you go in Ukraine, the more pro-Russia the sentiment becomes. But that's all done. It's done now. With the exception of areas that have been cleansed, basically, of Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian population, all of these places are completely destroyed and are entirely, if allowed to be repopulated by Ukrainians, are going to never, ever want to have anything to do with Russia ever again. Based on how poor Russian military is performing against Ukraine, is it possible that Russia's nuclear shit too? I mean, that's not a gamble that I would touch. But the one thing that is definite, undeniable, is that Russia's military operation took the fattest of L's. Well, it's terrifying for a couple different reasons, okay? It's good. It's terrifying for this reason. I'll just say that. It also opened up an idea for America, a new way of never even sending a single American troop to another area and just continuously engage in proxy wars, which they were doing already. They can do whatever the they want, everywhere they want to. And in many instances, like in Ukraine, there is a justifiable perspective of emancipation from the Ukrainian people themselves, understandably, who want to rid themselves of, not a new idea, it's an old idea, but it's now definitely, it's a definitely solid one against even Russia as well. I know world powers have always done that, but oftentimes it's like done through secondary forces that you give training to. Like Syria is a good example of this, where you have like direct military confrontation. Why can't I talk today? Confrontation. But now you can have like entire state military apparatus geared to do wars against other entire military state apparatus as long as you're just selling weapons directly. The only things Russia succeeded at were cyber attacks at the start of the war, but they failed to capitalize on those grounds. The defense industry worldwide is beefing up too, which is devastating to think of. But Turkey and other countries sending weapons to Ukraine are also expanding its defense industries at a quick rate. Yeah. If brain rot from the drama, probably. I don't know. I just know that this is going further south. This is not fully confirmed, and take it with a grain of salt, but the head of RT confirmed details about mobilization. Also haven't seen / heard one bit about being arrested or catapulted to the front lines. I'm not risking visiting right now. Lamau. Yeah, don't do it. But the more this continues, and we know this as Americans, right? You're an American, so you've gone through this, seen this throughout our history. Of course, it's a little bit different because America is the world superpower, so it can continue doing multiple front proxy wars, boots on the ground military intervention, and whatever the wants without having too much trouble back home, okay? However, the longer a war continues like this, which was literally my original analysis as to why I thought foolishly that Vladimir Putin would not invade a country with 40 million citizens that have based their entire nation-building project on resentment towards an imperial or irredentist superpower next door, as you all probably famously recall. I knew that this was going to be an impossible operation. Also, the Azovstal defenders, including Azov commanders, have been released yesterday. I thought, wait, what? Really? I did not even know that.
Not only support for the war, but for support for Putin personally.
Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison there. And he's calling up hundreds of thousands of more men, but you say it's unclear what kind of difference it will make.
Yeah, Michael, these are going to be, at best, conscripts, people who have served in the past, have had no follow-on training, but it's probably going to be just pulling people, any able-bodied military-age man off the street who can fog a mirror. And so don't expect any better performance out of a Russian military that has systemic flaws and has deep corruption. So I think in a lot of ways these troops are just going to be cannon fodder that Putin may be able to use sometime in the early spring.
Steve Gagnier, thank you as always.